guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture. He's Phil Chambers from WhatCulture, and we are here with your afternoon. So let's just dive straight into it, talking about the real reason why AEW have dropped the storyline surrounding Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Adam Cole. If you're wondering that they sort of started that and then just sort of abandoned it and all the stuff with Young Bucks and Red Dragon and what have you, well, the reason why that has happened is because of Kyle O'Reilly taking some paternity leave. This is according to Dave Meltzer in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter. He's currently off TV because of the birth of his daughter, Janie Elizabeth Greenwood. What a lovely name that is, who he and his wife welcomed into the world on the 17th of January. O'Reilly, of course, debuted over Christmas, the 22nd of December episode of AEW Dynamite, 12 days after his WWE contract expired. But they started it so that people wouldn't just be like, that's a bit weird that they haven't even referenced this. But they sort of knew already in advance that, yes, Kyle would be taking time off, Phil, for the birth of his daughter. I like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, normalise this kind of thing.
Yeah.
These, like, real life things happen, and these things are, let's face it, far more important than what goes on in a wrestling ring. This is like the birth of his child. He should probably be there for it and stay home. So this is really good. It might be another thing why they might have brought in Switchblade, maybe, Jay White, to kind of keep that kind of warring old faction storyline going through AEW, but without having to go back to the Red Dragon thing for now. And then when you do bring that back in, that could be another spanner in the works for the whole sort of grander thing. So I think it'll all work out in the long run, and as soon as they like get back to this, it'd be very intriguing to see what they do.
Yeah, you sense there's been this sort of ongoing storyline that they're slowly bringing together of Adam Cole usurping Kenny Omega's part in the Elite, and then sort of dismantling a little bit. He's got the Young Bucks on his side for now, but then of course he's got Red Dragon, who don't always see eye to eye with the Young Bucks, and tonight even on Rampage he's got Jay White cornering the Young Bucks, much to their displeasure.
Yeah, and then eventually whenever Kenny Omega does come back, the bits there's so many moving parts to this, it's absolutely great. I absolutely love it. But yeah,
but I have a question for you, Phil.
There it is.
Why did Kyle O'Reilly go to AEW?
Well, funny you should ask that, because I have a bit of an update from that. He was on Renee Pagans' Oral Sessions podcast. I've heard it's quite a good podcast.
It's one of the best podcasts out there that isn't ours.
And he was talking about the kind of differences between AEW and WWE and why he decided to go with AEW instead of staying around at WWE. And I've got a quote
specifically from NXT 2.0.
Well, yeah, that's true. And I will just read out some quotes from the podcast. He said, the AEW locker room is full of these guys that I came up with in this business that I've been friends with for years. There was a lot of that in NXT too, but it seemed like every couple of weeks I would look around at the locker room and it was getting decimated. It wasn't a very good environment, I guess, at that time. I wanted to follow my heart where I'm going to be happy and be utilized. So he was very worried about his part in the sort of WWE landscape and what that might look at, especially in terms of a move to the main roster. Obviously, his entire WWE run for 4 years was on NXT. And he went on to talk about how he felt to stay with WWE, it was going to be to stay with NXT. And at this point, after 4.5 years, if you don't really have a spot for Kyle O'Reilly on the main roster, I get the vibe that there wasn't going to be a spot for him up there. So yeah, as soon as like that NXT run was sort of coming to an end and NXT 2.0 was beginning to come in, there was a lot of ums and ahs about what was going to happen with Kyle O'Reilly, especially with his contract coming up when it did. He had like a dark match before SmackDown, I think, once. And I think when you start seeing things like that, you start seeing Vince McMahon's vision for him on the main roster and what that might be. And I honestly think he made quite the wise choice.
Yeah. I mean, the friends is the justification, disregarding everything else, one would assume. But also, no great surprise here. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, look at bloody NXT 2.0 and the Von Wagner Hart storyline or what have you.
Yeah.
I think if NXT was still the NXT we knew and loved, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he moved anyway, if someone like Adam Cole had already made the leap, and Bobby Fish, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Like you say, he only needed to look at what they had planned for Adam Cole if he moved to the main roster, let alone, you know, the underlings, let's say, in the Undisputed Era. Yeah.
And not even on that scale, if you look at how they treated like a Karrion Kross, for example, going up there. There's a lot of red flags to be seen there, and especially when all of your mates have gone to AEW anyway, and if the offer's there and they're willing, why the hell wouldn't you go there? You're not going to increase your position in your career by staying at NXT 2.0.
Really excited to see what he does in AEW. But I remember being there in that Raw after WrestleMania in 2019 when they had the title versus title match, and we were like, well, that's not getting a finish, so I think the Undisputed Era are going to debut, and they never did. Why would you not use the Undisputed Era on the main roster? Because you're Vince McMahon, and they don't look the right way, basically. But yes, best of luck to Kyle O'Reilly and all of the Undisputed Era, other than Roderick Strong, who's obviously still in NXT, with what they do next. And don't hound Kyle O'Reilly to return. Allow him, like we said, to just enjoy his paternity leave, because just ask the Dadleys. Dads need time too. Anyway,
it's hard work.
Yeah, let's bring you a bit of an update on the former Tyson Kid, better known, of course, as TJ Wilson, or probably better known as Tyson Kid, but he's known as TJ Wilson, of course. He's been missing for a while from several WWE, what they called, internal run sheets. He's been sort of missing as a producer recently. Fightful recently pointed this out, but Dave Meltzer has clarified the situation on the Wrestling Observer newsletter. It's very much good news, bad news. He's still very much on good terms with his employers. He's still got a producer role. He is going to be coming back. I think he does some great stuff. You always hear his name coming out and associated with some of the fantastic matches that they put together. He's not quitting WWE, basically. But it's not all good news. Horrible to read that, once again, TJ Wilson, those neck issues. He obviously suffered the spinal cord injury, taking that muscle buster from Samoa Joe on Raw in 2015, or on a Raw Dark match, I should say, in 2015. But yeah, Meltzer writes that while Wilson is currently able to function, his neck is in, quote, terrible shape and can flare up, sort of preventing him from doing anything. Awful, this. I know there's been speculation recently with other people with neck stuff coming back. I think we always say TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd's situation is very different to everyone else. But I would have hoped that it would be at least manageable. Awful to read this.
Yeah, that's the thing. You kind of expect him to get to a point where it's at least livable with, or fine. But when you can't even come in and do his producer role, something really bad is going on, and it's a shame for a guy like TJ who, like you say, universally liked backstage. Like, you only ever hear good things about him. Like, to the point when I think it was both Bayley and Sasha both sung his praises on the Stone Cold Steve Austin Broken Skull Sessions podcast when they were on that, and even to the point where people refused Royal Rumble positions specifically because he wasn't producing the match. That kind of tells you everything you need to know about how well liked the guy is backstage and how people trust him in that position and kind of want him there. So it's good news that he's not been thrust out of that position and WWE aren't moving off in a different direction. But just get well soon, TJ.
Absolutely, we wish him well in his recovery, because neck issues are something that we always hope that our favourite wrestlers can recover from. Some of them just have to, shift into these other roles, and still living with it is clearly a daily issue, like you say, Phil. Just get well soon, TJ.
Yeah, absolutely. And to finish off this afternoon news, it's a little bit about Seth Rollins. He was on the Pat McAfee's podcast, another great podcast, just not as good as ours, obviously. And he named his Mount Rushmore of wrestling, like everyone's favourite question, really, in terms of wrestling, who they would put up on Mount Rushmore. And he named his, and one of them is very surprising, I must say. So I'll go through. He put Shawn Michaels on first.
Of course.
Good choice. Eddie Guerrero. Good choice.
Yeah.
Brian Hart. Good choice. You might recognise a theme here of very good in-ring workers on his Mount Rushmore. Fourth one, it's an AEW guy.
Oh.
It's a current guy. It's Bryan Danielson.
Okay.
Obviously, and he went on to say that he's when all is done and done, he's going to go down as being one of the absolute greatest in-ring performers of all time. And I honestly can't disagree with him more. At all.
I think, especially when it comes to non-WWE stuff, i.e. not something that Vince McMahon has his dirty, grubby little fingers in. Yeah, it should be allowed that you can, you shouldn't just be able to be like, oh, well, that person doesn't work for us anymore, so they no longer existed. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't do that when people do discretions outside of the ring. That's a completely different issue. But just because they go and work over there doesn't mean that you shouldn't be having them in the conversation as one of the greatest ever, alongside Hart, Michaels, and Guerrero.
Yeah, and you absolutely can't argue with it. He is absolutely incredible. He is my favourite current wrestler, and possibly I'm gonna go out and say he's probably one of the greatest workers of all time.
Yes, I think there's no arguments there.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't get punished for any of this bollocks, basically.
Yes, this is true. But who's on your Mount Rushmore? More to the point.
Kilograms. Titus O'Neil.
Obviously.
The Iconics.
Ah, there it is.
Iconics at either end, and then the other two.
Yeah, of course.
Yours?
Even it out
Too
better.
cool.
Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, and Commissioner Foley.
Let us know your wrestling Mushmore.
Mount Mushmore.
It's Friday afternoon. Mount Rushmore. Let's get to the pub. In the comments section below, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. We've literally just finished recording Wrestle Culture with a hashtag Bloody Good Quiz, so go and check that out when it comes out in... Now, it's out now. It's literally out now. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts, Twitter questions, all that sort of thing at WhatCultureWW on Twitter. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Phil Chambers at
Phil My Chambers, and you can follow Adam at
Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWW, as I said. But for now, my thanks to Phil Chambers. Thanks you for joining us, and we will see you soon.